In this video, we will show you how to replace your passenger side front axle on this Chevy Malibu. This will be located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we need to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've done so, continue on to removing all 5 of your 22mm lug nuts and then the wheel. Use some penetrant and a 32mm, we're going to remove our axle nut. If you find you have a hard time removing this, you could have a second person inside of the vehicle holding that brake pedal while you continue turning this counterclockwise. Otherwise, use a pry bar diagonally across this area down towards the ground, holding it in place. A little bit more penetrant here. Continue on with a hammer and punch directly in the center of the axle. We're going to break the axle free from the wheel bearing behind it. Once you can see movement in this area, continue down along the bottom at the ball joint. Down in this area, you're going to find that you have a 15mm headed bolt. For the passenger side, it makes its way through from the front towards the rear. Along the back side, you're going to find you have a 15mm mounting nut. Carefully remove this, give it a quick inspection, and set it aside. With that out of the way, let's use some penetrant along the top area here. We want to make sure that we have some penetrant making its way in between the knuckle and the ball joint stud. While having penetrant in this area, continue on with this center slot here. Use a small prying device. Carefully pry this area apart, being careful not to pry too much because we don't want to cause any damage. We just want to make it so penetrant can do its job in that area. There we are. Once you have that area well lubricated, continue on with a pry bar in between the control arm and the knuckle. We're going to separate the ball joint stud from the knuckle. The ball joint stud makes its way up through here. While doing so, we're going to be careful for our ABS wire. If you don't feel like you have any movement from this area, you could lightly tap to cause vibration. That might help a little bit. Now, while we do separate this, we have to pull the knuckle out and away towards the rear so we can bring the axle out towards the front. Once again, being extremely careful for our ABS wire. Let's carefully start pulling this axle out of here. You might have to pull down on the control arm. At this point, we want to be extremely careful. The only thing holding the axle in is on the inboard side here. We'll continue on the inboard side, lightly start tapping this out through the wheel well. For safety, I have a rubber strap around the axle, and then I just brought it up around here. With our safety strap in place, carefully make your way under the vehicle. Up and over the subframe is where you're going to find the axle, and this is where we're tapping. Carefully use a hammer and drive this part away. You can see it separating here. Now I'll make my way on the outside and lightly tug this out. Let's get the strap out of here. Remove the axle. There it is, friend. You want to make sure you clean and inspect this area and make sure the seal's in good condition. You don't want moisture making its way inside there and rusting this to the other piece. Continue on with some anti-seize. Just put some right in that port right there. Okay, let's prepare to install our brand new right front axle. Take the inboard side and slide it into position. You want to make sure that you pay attention to this locking ring. When we slide this in, we want to continue driving it in so it's completely locked in the proper position. Now what you might find is while trying to press it in, it just doesn't want to lock in at the far end there. If that's the case, make sure that your mounting nut is still in place at the end here, and lightly tap on the end with a rubber mallet, being careful not to cause any damage to your brand new axle. Once you feel as though you have that driven in, you need to take hold of the axle. Don't hold onto the boot. We don't want to cause any damage to the axle itself. Just grab onto the far end here and try to give it a little tug. We want to try to pull it out of place. If it slides out of place, it's not completely locked in and you need to continue on. If it is completely locked in, we'll continue on with bringing the axle into the backside of the wheel bearing. Let's get some copper anti-seize on the backside of the wheel bearing here. Remove the axle nut from your brand new axle. At this point, we're going to have to do several things at the same exact time. First of all, we're paying attention to the ABS wire. We want to make sure that we do not damage this. Secondly, we have the axle that's going to slide into the back side of the wheel bearing, but we also have this ball joint stud which will slide into the bottom of the knuckle. With all that said, let's make it happen. Pay attention for that ABS wire. Use a rubber mallet to drive that into place if necessary, and continue on with your lower mounting bolt. Use some blue thread locker. Let's get our mounting nut on there. Let's hold this side with the wrench, continue on by snugging the other side, and then we'll torque that to 37 foot-pounds. Get the axle nut on here. Start that on by hand. Continue on with tightening that nut. Never use an impact tool on this. You could cause damage to your wheel bearing. Now let's have a look along the back side of our wheel. You're going to find that you have a center cover that you have to remove by driving it from the inboard side out. Just give that a quick inspection. Continue on to reinstalling your wheel. We'll get this in position. Start on all 5 of your 22mm lug nuts and bottom them out. Let's get the wheel back on the ground. With the wheel back on the ground, we'll continue torquing the axle nut inside this area to 111 foot-pounds. Reinstall your center cover. Continue on to torquing each one of your 5 22mm lug nuts to 110 foot-pounds. Torqued. Okay friends, we've got our vehicle back together. At this point, hop in the passenger compartment. Make sure the brake pedal's nice and firm, take your vehicle for a road test, listen for funny noises, and get yourself a 4-wheel alignment. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.